Okay, Jeff, the lustful man, the man with the lizard. What's going on here?
Yes, you picked me. This is probably, for good reason, this is probably my favorite story.
I love it too.
What sat on his, so there's a man and he's kind of shrunken over, I think, and sunk over. And he's kind of talking to this lizard. Well, you see, what sat on his shoulder was a little red lizard, and it was twitching its tail like a whip and whispering things in his ear. And then he encounters a flaming spirit, an angel. And that flaming spirit says, "Would you like me to make him quiet?" "Of course I would," said the ghost. "Then I will kill him," said the angel, taking a step forward. Look out, you're burning me." "Keep away," said the ghost, retreating. So there's a fusion here between this man and his lust, his red lizard.
Yep.
And
so what does the angel do?
Well, it's talking about this. I'm going to read a little more from it, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Because one of the things he does, and I work with sex addiction in my practice and in other things. And one of the things he wants to do is he wants to wait. Well, later, right? Like Augustine said, "Give me, dear Lord, give me chastity and virtue, but not yet."
Right.
And so he says to him, "Honestly, I think there's the slightest, I'm sure I'll be able to keep it in order now. I think the gradual process would be far better than killing it." And the angel says, "Their gradual process is of no use at all." "Don't you think so?" "Well, I'll think over what you've said very carefully." Again, this delay, "Not yet. I honestly will. In fact, I'd let you kill it right now. But as a matter of fact, I'm not feeling frightfully well today. It would be silly to do it now. I'd need to be in good health for this operation. Some other day, perhaps." And then the angel says, "There is no other day. All days are present now." And there is that now or never moment. If not now, then when? And if not me, then who? And there's be able to take that step out of that fallen, lascivious world. This lizard's been doing a lot for him, even as it's been keeping him
weak.
Yeah. So he finally understands. Now the lizard says something very true. He says, so the angel's just looming in, ready to just snap this lizard's neck. And the lizard says, "Be careful. How can he do what he can do? What he says, he can kill me. One fatal word from you and he will. Then you'll be without me forever and ever. It's not natural. How could you live? You'd be only a ghost of sort, not a real man as you are now. He doesn't understand. He's only a cold, bloodless, abstract thing." Obviously, this lizard's got it backwards. "It may be natural for him to live like this, but it isn't for us. Yes, I know there are no real pleasures now in hell, only dreams, but aren't they better than nothing? And I'll be so good from now on. I admit I've sometimes gone too far, but I promise I won't do it again." Now, us addicts, we'll think that, we can keep that bear confined, this wild bear, just maybe it's acted out, but we can keep it. We can keep this addiction in check. I promise I won't do it again. I'll give you nothing but really nice dreams, all sweet and fresh and almost innocent. You might say quite innocent. So then he prattles on, and fortunately, this man lets the angel kill this lizard. But then something happens. Next moment, the ghost gave a scream of agony such as I never heard on earth. The burning one closed his crimson grip on the reptile, twisted it, while it bit and writhed, and then flung it broken back on the turf. "Oh, that's done for me," gasped the ghost, reeling backwards. And then there's this miraculous transformation where the lizard turns into a beautiful horse.
Yep.
And the narrator, Lewis, is confused and turns to MacDonald and said, "Am I supposed to tell them that this lizard turned into a horse?" And he says, "Yes, but it was killed first. Don't forget to tell that part of the story. It had to die first." But does it mean that everything that is in us can go onto the mountains? Nothing, not even the best and noblest, can go on as it now is. Nothing, not even what is lowest and most bestial, will not be raised again if it submits to death. It is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body. Flesh and blood cannot come to the mountains, not because they are too rank, but because they are too weak. What is a lizard compared to a stallion? Lust is a poor, weak, whimpering, whispery thing compared with that richness and energy of desire, which will arise when lust has been killed. And then maybe to put the cherry on top, but am I to tell them, Lewis asks MacDonald, his guide, but am I to tell them at home that this man's sensuality proved less of an obstacle than that poor woman's love for her son? For that was at any rate an excess of love. You'll tell them no such thing, he replied. Excess of love? There was no excess. There was defect. She loved her son too little, not too much. If she had loved him more, there'd be no difficulty. I do not know how her affair will end, but it may well be that at this moment she's demanding to have him down with her in hell. That kind is sometimes perfectly ready to plunge the soul they say they love in endless misery if only they can instill in some fashion possess it, which lust is a lot about possessiveness too. No, ye must draw another lesson. Ye must ask if the risen body, even of appetite, is as grand a horse as ye saw. What would the risen body of maternal love or friendship be?
Right. So you have to allow this fallen, corrupted notion of love to die, whether that's lust or possessiveness or any of these other things.
And if we try to hold on to even the smallest bit, it can't die.
Right. But if you let it die and be reborn, it will become this magnificent thing. Right. Let it be reborn in God. It'll be this magnificent thing.
And for me, just the grace really shows up here. And there's different parts in the book where you see grace, where there is an angel or a spirit there who is willing to kill it, right? And it's an instant. He just has to allow it to be killed. So he doesn't have to kill it himself, which I thought was interesting.
It's important part. Yeah, he doesn't.
It's
He couldn't.
important
He would not be
because-
able to, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for those in addiction, I don't know. I mean, perhaps sometimes in the next life, maybe there will become a point like this, and we just have to have our souls to the point where when we see goodness, we recognize it and we say, yes, I want that instead of this.
And it
then
hurts.
God's
It hurts
grace
this man
can
when
work
when his lizard is killed. He has a burning pain for a bit, it will hurt.
Oh yeah, no, that's imagery that George MacDonald uses a lot. Just the fire, the pain that comes with this dying of the old self. But we should welcome it. We should welcome that suffering that helps us in this transition. So yeah, for me, this was very powerful. And just so much hope that God can, cure us of these things if we're willing to let Christ take that.
Willing to die.
Yeah.
Die to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this man, he is transformed too. The lizard is transformed into a horse, and this man is transformed into this powerful being of light.
And they ride up together. They just shoot up.
Yep.
So the desire, if horse represents the transformed desire, and again, this is, it feels uniquely LDS to me. I mean, I'm not obviously that plugged into mainline Christianity, but they talk about God having no passions, and this is a different image where desire is definitely still in heaven. It's just a transformed desire that's much more powerful and much more beautiful and much more glorious, and is the propelling force in heaven to get us further up and further in.
Right. Well, very good. Now, let's start our discussion of Sarah Smith.
I love her. Yes.
Sarah Smith, I believe, is the culmination of the entire book.
Is. Yeah.
I think the whole book builds toward her story. Allie, tell us about Sarah Smith.
Okay. So this is the narrator, who's Lewis, and MacDonald see something, sorry, I have a fly around me. Okay. Some kind of procession was approaching us, and the light came from the persons who composed it. First came bright spirits, not the spirits of men, who danced and scattered flowers, soundlessly falling, lightly drifting flowers. Though by the standards of the ghost world, each petal would have weighed 100 weight, and their fall would have been like the crashing of boulders. Then on the left and right, at each side of the forest avenue, came youthful shapes, boys upon one hand and girls upon the other. If I could remember their singing and write down the notes, no man who read that score would ever grow sick or old. Between them went musicians, and after these a lady, in whose honor all this was being done.
Very good. Now, so there's this huge procession around this lady. Okay. And let's continue, because now we're going to hear the narrator talking with George MacDonald about, like, who is she?
Who is she? What, have I heard of this person?
What are we
Right.
witnessing here?
Well, at first they think it's Mary, right? They're like,
Right.
oh, this must be Mary or someone. So they say, MacDonald is correcting him and said, you wouldn't have heard of her. But every young man or boy that met her became her son, even if it was only the boy that brought the meat to her back door. Every girl that met her was her daughter. So he tells her her name is Sarah Smith, and then explains this. Isn't that a bit hard on their own parents? No, there are those that steal other people's children, but her motherhood was of a different kind. Those on whom it fell went back to their natural parents, loving them more. Few men looked on her without becoming, in a certain fashion, her lovers. But it was the kind of love that made them not less true, but truer to their own wives. And how, but hello, what are these animals? A cat, 2 cats, dozens of cats, and all those dogs? Why, I can't count them. And the birds and the horses, they are her beasts. Did she keep a sort of zoo? I mean, this is a bit too much. Every beast and bird that came near her had its place in her love. In her they became themselves. And now the abundance of life she has in Christ from the Father flows over into them. Redeemed humanity is still young. It has hardly come to its full strength. But already there is joy enough in the little finger of a great saint such as yonder lady to waken all the dead things of the universe into life.
And a nobody in the standards of the world, right? But I think I've known some people like this, and they have, I think, all been women. But I know I've known some Sarah Smiths, I feel.
I have
think
too.
It's exactly.
Whenever I read the Sarah Smith story, I always get emotional, because I know I've known souls who are like this.
And bless you. I hope everybody listening gets to meet one, and you will know.
Yeah.
If you haven't, I'm sad for you. Because these transform. They awaken us to life. They truly do. These souls. Yeah.
There's a woman
we can all become her. I mean, we actually all can.
We're meant to. We're destined to. Yeah.
There's a woman in my stake who has never been married.
Yeah.
And she is a single sister. And she, everywhere she goes, people want to be around her. Everywhere she goes, people gather. They want to talk with her. They want to be in her presence. She just radiates this goodness and power. And it's this, people orbit her all the time. And it's just this privilege to be around her. It's extraordinary. You rarely see her alone, because people gravitate toward her. Because
of the joy it just exudes. Yeah.
Right.
Mine's a single woman too. She lives right back here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says the abundance of life she has in Christ from the Father flows over into them. This is somebody who, when people learn to love in the ways that God loves, this is what happens. You just become this magnet. People feel it, and it's like, wow, I'm in the presence of something really amazing.
but they point you, but never in the sense that it's not like charisma
Right.
that you're taken in by the person. They still point you to Christ. They
To
still
Christ.
point you to the source of
Yes.
that overflowing love. There's never any illusion that this is coming from them. We love them because they've embodied that Christ love, because we recognize in their countenance Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, Jeff. And I think sometimes I try really hard to be like Sarah Smith.
Mhm.
And I think it's hard to do that. I think it's hard to like, okay, I'm going to be nice to all the little kids. Because I do have her kind of in the back of my mind whenever I'm, yelling at my dog or yelling at my kids. And I think when he mentions the abundance of life she has from Christ, I think that we really need to make this like have Christ in us and have him change us, and then we will be like her rather than trying to be like her.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't think it's fully within our power to transform our nature to that extent. This is a woman who was converted by Jesus Christ.
And was given the gift that Moroni asks us all to pray for with all the energy of heart. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It isn't something she willed herself into either.
Right.
Yeah.
So very, very extraordinary passage. This, like I said, this is the culmination of the entire book. And we're kind of moving toward the end of the book here. And Sarah Smith has an encounter with her husband in mortality. Okay. But in this situation, he's very small. He's referred to as a dwarf, but he's really just small. And he's attached to a tragedian, which is basically a Shakespearean actor who's trying to generate drama and,
And he's dramatic. He's big. He's got big gesture. He's like he's on the stage. So he's going to be big.
Right. And they're
this
attached.
man is shrunken. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're attached by a chain, right? And Sarah Smith comes over and and actually encounters them. And it's very interesting what takes place. You can see here in very, very stark imagery the contrast between heaven and hell, the incompatibility between heaven and hell. So I'll go ahead and read this part. Let's see. And this is Sarah. She says, I have asked you to forgive me. There was a little real love in it, but what we called love down there on earth was mostly the craving to be loved. In the main, I loved you for my own sake because I needed you. And here's the tragedian. And now
you got to imagine the gestures.
Oh. Yeah, drama. And now, said the tragedian with a hackneyed gesture of despair, now you need me no more. But of course not, said the lady. And her smile made me wonder how both the phantoms could refrain from crying out with joy. What needs could I have? She said, now that I have all. I'm full now, not empty. I am in love himself, not lonely. Strong, not weak. You shall be the same. Come and see. We shall have no need for one another now. We can begin to love truly. Wow. I mean, that statement right there.
That true love is not out of need. Yeah.
Right. We shall have no need for one another now. We can begin to love truly. That's an amazing insight. But the tragedian, the dramatic actor, was still striking attitudes. She needs me no more, no more, no more, he said in a choking voice to no one in particular. Would to God, he continued, but he was now pronouncing it good. Would to good I had seen her lying dead at my feet before I heard those words, lying dead at my feet, lying dead at my feet. So it's all about this melodrama, right? She is inviting him to maturity and development and growth and love and abundance. And he has this character attached to him, and we might just call it like a character trait, right? The tragedian, this dramatic actor who can only respond with drama and whining, and he just totally averse to any kind of growth here.
And
right?
that's the only talking, all the talking on his side comes through the tragedian. But Sarah isn't fooled by that. She only addresses herself to the man holding the chain.
Right.
But he has so lost himself in this posing, in this dramatic persona, that's how he interacts. And again, I've been here in this drama, right?
Yeah.
We have this word now. Oh, there's drama. Well, this is it exactly. Yeah. And then he's learned to manipulate.
Yep.
But for what? Right? For some fine performances.
Yeah,
I'm sure. But I mean, he's going to get an Oscar for that. But then what?
Yeah, he's lost his true self under all of the fake offense, all the pretense, all the fake outrage. And I mean, if we do that enough, like if we act offended when we're not, or if we are, seem one way when we're the other, we lose ourselves and we can become smaller. And she's pleading with this little man who keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Please stop. Just let go of the chain. Like, stop pretending. Be real.
Yeah.
But he just can't.
Yeah. She's inviting him to grow up. Like, grow up. Let's learn what love really is. And no, I need drama. And so then begins a discussion of, okay, what happens? Like, is she
going to be sad? Is he going to hold her hostage the way he's trying?
Right. Is he going to go down to hell, and is he able to bring her down there? Okay, because he obviously can't abide heaven, right? So there emerges this discussion of, okay, how does that work? How do you pass between these places, right?
Yeah.
And the question comes about, like, the narrator's saying, wait, how did we get through here? And George MacDonald, it says, my teacher gave a curious smile. Look, he said, and with the word, he went down on his hands and knees. I did the same. How it hurt my knees. And presently saw that he had plucked a blade of grass. Using its thin end as a pointer, he made me see, after I had looked very closely, a crack in the soil, so small that I could not have identified it without this aid. I cannot be certain, he said, that this is the crack ye came up through. But through a crack no bigger than that, ye certainly came. So he's saying that entire bus full of ghosts came up through a crack in the soil that's so tiny, you can't even, like, hardly detect it. Well, and so the narrator says, do you mean then that hell, all that infinite empty town, is down in some little crack like this? Just a little crack in the soil? Yes. All hell is smaller than one pebble of your earthly world, but it is smaller than one atom of this world, the real world. Look at yon butterfly. If it swallowed all hell, hell would not be big enough to do it any harm or to have any taste. I see, said I at last. She couldn't fit into hell. So there's no way Sarah Smith can go to hell because it can't hold her. Like, she's real.
Right. Because, I mean, it's the idea of, and I've thought this myself, like, aren't we going to be really mourning, all the people who don't make it, and I still think about that. And this is actually kind of a theological discussion he's having with George MacDonald, who was a universalist. Well, he never called himself that, but I don't want to get too deep into that. But basically, it's the idea of, well, aren't we just going to be feeling so sad that these people are there and we're here? Wouldn't we go down and save them? And there's a quote. I don't know. Do you want to finish reading that? Because there's a quote I want to share.
Yeah. And George MacDonald says there's not room for her. Hell could not open its mouth wide enough. And she couldn't make herself smaller like Alice, Nothing like small enough for a damned soul is nearly nothing. It is shrunk, shut up in itself. Good beats upon the damned incessantly as sound waves beat on the ears of the deaf, but they cannot receive it. Their fists are clenched, their teeth are clenched, their eyes fast shut. First, they will not. In the end, they cannot open their hands for gifts, or their mouths for food, or their eyes to see. So
It's
this
so
is
beautifully written.
it is beautifully written. It's hell is so small. It all of it, can fit in this little crack in the soil in these blades of grass that they're talking about.
Yeah. So I think this is really an important thing in our modern world, particularly for us to understand. Because what's happening is this man is trying to use pity against her. Okay.
Yes.
He's trying to say,
weaponized empathy.
What about me? You don't care? You don't care about me?
Don't you love me?
I think this is MacDonald saying, using pity, other people's pity in the wrong way. We have all done it a bit on earth, Pity was meant to be a spur that drives joy to help misery, but it can be used the wrong way around. It can be used for a kind of blackmailing. Those who choose misery can hold joy up to ransom by pity. You see, I know now, even as a child you did it. Instead of saying you were sorry, this is Sarah Smith speaking, instead of saying you were sorry, you went and skulked in the attic because you knew that sooner or later one of your sisters would say, I can't bear to think of him sitting up there alone crying. You used their pity to blackmail them, and they gave in the end. And afterwards, when we were married, oh, it doesn't matter. If only you will stop it. So
she's saying that not for her sake, right? She doesn't need him to stop, but she loves him, and so she wants him to stop for his own good. Yeah.
Yeah. This misuse of pity, and I'm not sure where it is, but C.S. Lewis, he's trying to make the point that those in hell cannot steal the joy of those in heaven. That's not what heaven will be like.
Yeah.
Our joy will not be lessened because of the choices of others. But he's also, she's trying to get him to see this. Like, he has to realize, and then he can, come up to heaven. Like, he could just let go of that line between him and his false self.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it's an important thing to ponder, for a little bit. If we do that, if we're using pity in the wrong way, yeah.
So these are very, very important concepts. And again, one of the large themes here of the book is that heaven is reality. It is the ability to live in reality, abide reality, engage well with reality. And hell is the exact opposite. It's the preference for delusion, avoidance, and these kind of petty, whiny counterfeits to actual love, right? So all of this brings up the question, which characters do you relate to? And if you're reading this book, right, several of these characters, reading their stories, it's going to sting, right? So it's very powerful. But let's, as we...
do you want us to answer which one we are?
What do you think, Allie?
Well, I see myself in quite a few of them. But I think, we all kind of have, when we get into stress or despair, we go to certain things. And I think I turn to cynicism, just doubting everything, Yeah. And so it's really important for me to read this and to, see the joy that Christ brings to me. But yes, the cynic is the one. And also just this need for appreciation. I think a lot of us stay-at-home moms struggle with, man, I'm not being appreciated. And there's some women in the book where it's just like, I did this and no one cared, and you feel justified in that. But it's not a good quality to have. And you just, he explains, well, you just got to let it go. You got to do don't do things for your own glory. So those are the things, there's a lot I could go on about, but yeah,
Yep.
those really strike me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same. This is a really deep book that there's a lot you can think through and discuss. But it's a very short book. I mean, my copy here set in pretty small pages, not small type. It's 128 pages. You'd probably be halfway through if you read the book instead of listened to us by now, at least. But I still think our discussion is worthwhile because it's so deep, and I keep coming back to these characters. President Nelson admonished us not to think of others who need it, but I'll confess that I'll often, see people doing things and I'll think of the characters in the book. Oh, and it's usually not Sarah Smith or George MacDonald. It's one of the ghosts. I'll say, oh, there's this guy. But if I'm being honest, I can relate to just about all of them, except maybe the artist. And that's only because I don't have a lot of those skills. If I did, I probably would there. But particularly, I mean, even the apple stealer, I've tried to hoard things, and the people of Israel tried that with the manna and it turned rotten. And I've had that happen. So I would say just about all of them I relate to and have been. Oh yeah, from time to time. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I would just say that if I read this book once a month and Screw Tape Letters once a month, C.S. Lewis might make me a halfway decent person. Like those two books combined.
Yeah.
Like you can just keep those in the back of your mind. Then I do think it actually helps me.
They're really, really extraordinary.
Yeah.
For me in this book, I see myself in these demands around entitlement. I've been that way so many times in my life. I'm entitled to this. Look what I've done. Shouldn't I be acknowledged and recognized? I'm entitled to that. So those narratives really sting, when it's like, wow, I don't want to be that way anymore.
Yeah.
And let's wind it down with a social media post from Elder Renlund. And this is one of the most magnificent and powerful passages in the entire book. Jeff, will you please read it for us?
Glad to. I spent some time during our summer break reading C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce. See, Elder Renlund's read it, so you should read it. I was intrigued by much of what I read. Us too. He wasn't available for this podcast, or we would have had him on here too. One quote in particular that I have continued to ponder is, quote, "Mortals say of some temporal suffering, no future bliss can make up for it." In fact, this sidetrack here, this is one of the central debates in the Brothers Karamazov, where one of the brothers is like, I can't accept heaven because I'm so upset at the injustice of life. So no future bliss can make up for it, not knowing that heaven, once attained, will work backwards and turn even that agony into a glory. And of some sinful pleasure, they say, let me have this and I'll take the consequences, little dreaming how damnation will spread back and back into their past and contaminate the pleasure of the sin. Both processes begin even before death. I testify that's true. I've had this happen to me. The good man's past begins to change so that his forgiven sins and remembered sorrows take on the quality of heaven. It's important to say forgiven sins. This doesn't happen with sins we haven't repented of. The bad man's past already conforms to his badness and is filled only with dreariness. And that is why, at the end of all things, when the sun rises here and the twilight turns to blackness down there, the blessed will say, we have never lived anywhere except in heaven. And the lost, we were always in hell. And both will speak truly. And Elder Renlund says, rather than have our mistakes, disappointments, struggles, and trials push us downward, we can use them to help us build toward heaven. This is what it means to come unto Christ. As we allow his atoning sacrifice to redeem us, heal us, and strengthen us, we become what we came on earth to become.
Okay. That is an amazing quote. And there's a reason why. So Jeff and I a little while ago did a video on Judgment Day. What is that like? Because people have such erroneous conceptions of it. And the title of our video is Judgment Day is Underway. So it's happening.
Not in the future.
Not in the future. It's right.
It will be
now,
that
this
too,
moment.
of course, but
Yeah.
it's now too.
But judgment in the future is going to be more just mutual
Ratifying,
recognition
yes.
of reality.
It's going to ratify what's already happened.
Yeah. We're
And it
making
reminds
choices
me
now.
of the book, just when you say that, because it's like he talks about, is hell a real place? And McDonald says, yeah, I mean, it's a real place, but it's also in your mind. And I think that's, like you
It's a
said,
state of
Judgment
mind.
Day. It's happening, and it's also a real thing that will happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So it is a state of mind. It is a paradigm, right? And we are embracing one or the other paradigms every day. A paradigm of heaven that leads us upward. And that's the straight and narrow path of growth and development and maturity and abundance and joy, right? Versus the paradigm of hell, which is I can't abide reality and I'm needy and whiny and complainy
And have to be validated.
Always need to be validated. I'm
Recognized,
entitled. I need to be
reputation.
all of these things. So we are embracing one or the other of those paradigms. Now, we've also talked about discernment in the past. You can discern heaven and hell in the soul, in your soul and the souls around us. Look at groups of people who embrace the paradigm of hell and look how miserable they are. They can't stand being around each other, right? Whereas people who have embraced the paradigm of heaven, we have some of those people around us at church and in other places, and it's just this amazing joy to be around those kinds of people. It's incredible. So anyway, that is our summary of the Great Divorce, and we hope that you all will read it and recommend it for book clubs. And I've said before, this book was hard for me to read the first time I read it. I couldn't really make sense of it. That's why we're doing this, is to help people kind of understand what's going on so they can benefit from this book, right? Any closing thoughts, Allie or Jeff?
Well, go ahead, Allie.
Sorry. One recommendation I have, unfortunately, my husband is annoyed by me because I always get everything on Audible and a hard copy. So I pay double for all my
double,
books.
Yeah.
But they used to have a free version of this on YouTube. I'm not sure if it's on there anymore, but there's a version out there that's really good with the voices.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I listen and then I mark in the book. And that helps me a lot to kind of just really dig deep into it and understand it. So that's one thing people could do.
So the Audible version is really great because it's acted. You get kind of the sense of things. I wrote a piece for Public Square years ago about the demons, right? And one of the things I said there is that hell is needy. It's a whiny place. And I learned that from the Great Divorce. Like now when I read the New Testament and I read the stories of demonic possession, and when the demons cry out, I hear a whiny voice. And it makes sense to me. I'm like, whoa, that is what hell sounds like. Again, all of this.
Yeah, but when my kids are whiny, it does sound like hell.
Like hell.
Yeah. When adults are whiny, it's even worse. Right? I mean, whiny, entitled adults are hell. It's pretty bad. You can help kids sometimes, but adults, when it solidifies, man. So
Dan, I was just going to ask, you said when Elder Renlund was at a state conference of yours, he quoted the Great Divorce. Was it the same quote? What did he share there? Okay.
It was. He shared this quote in a state conference in my area years ago. He shared it in general conference too.
Yes.
And, just to give
2018.
some, C.S. Lewis is, I read that he's the second most quoted non-LDS person in conference. So this is, many of the apostles respect C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
Like, I think, can't remember who first was. I think not T.S. Eliot. Who was it? One of the poets. Ralph Waldo Emerson was the first quoted. So yeah, of course, in things like the Trinity, we have some divergence, but it's amazing how much you can read of Lewis and not disagree with him.
Right.
Like, it's amazing.
Yes.
He is the great unifier because, Greek Orthodox love him, Catholics love him, Anglicans, everyone loves C.S. Lewis. His Mere Christianity was, it's what we all kind of believe. And so he is a great author to dig deeper into.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. And with that, we will close. Thank you for joining us, and we'll do it again sometime. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Thanks.